great to welcome a man who knows a little bit about politics, and he has a brand new book out. It's called The Parties versus the People, How to Turn Republicans and Democrats into Americans. We're joined by former Congressman from Oklahoma, Mickey Edwards, today from up in Washington, D.C. And Congressman, good to talk to you. How are you today?
Thank you, Doug. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I wanted to have you on when we had a chance to get the book and talk a little politics. Obviously, this is the heart of the race coming up now, less than 2 months to go as we talk today. And I think your thesis in the book here is something a lot of people have been talking about. I've heard people talk about it just in conversation. They're a little bit, I guess, disenfranchised with the whole system right now, and your book really goes into that.
Well, what's happened is that Americans are getting very frustrated about the fact that it doesn't seem to matter very much what the issue is that Congress is dealing with, whether it's a budget or repairing infrastructure or whatever you have to do. They can't come together. They can't find some grounds to compromise and move forward as a country. So I actually came up with the title, The Parties versus the People, but it was the editors at the Atlantic magazine who came up with the subtitle, which was How to Turn Republicans and Democrats into Americans. And I think that's because of the level of frustration that, over 40% of Americans now call themselves independents. USA Today had an article that I mentioned in the book about the people are fleeing from the political parties. And so it really is a problem. When you put your loyalty first to your party as opposed to what you can do for the country, it really is putting us at risk of being able to function. And I think a lot of people are getting very concerned about it.
Yeah, I think you see that, particularly in all these political talk shows at night, whether you're, depending on what persuasion, doesn't really matter. You hear that frustration from the people that come on them, and when they talk to the public, why can't we get this budget thing settled? I guess it's been a while since Congress has passed the budget, right? I mean, it never seemed to be that way. I mean, I've followed politics for quite a while. You've been in it, obviously, as your profession for 16 years or more. It's got to be frustrating to you, right?
Yeah, well, it's very frustrating, and that's what caused me to write the book, is what I've seen is a real disconnect between where the people are and where their elected officials are. And the reason for it, I started really looking into this. Why is it that way? And, incentive systems work. And we've created this political system that all of our founders warned us against. So Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, they all said repeatedly, don't create the kind of permanent factions, political parties that we have today. We did it anyway. And so now what happens is that in order to get on the ballot in November, you have to tailor your message to the people who turn out in your closed party primary, who tend to be the people who are the most partisan, the most ideological, the most unforgiving, uncompromising. And so the people who survive that process are the ones who then end up in Washington, and their loyalty is not, to all of the electorate, not all of the constituency, but to the subgroups that they have to keep happy if they're going to stay in office. And that's why we can't, and the party leaders then in the legislatures are able to draw the district lines, and they can draw congressional districts that help you or hurt you, and all of the stuff. So we really have to break that system, because all the incentives now are to not compromise, to not cooperate, and that's why nothing works.
I think we saw pretty good examples of it in the conventions. We just had the Republicans down here in Tampa, and we saw the Democrats up in Charlotte. I think you could make a case that the Democrats really have, at least in the convention, seem like they've been almost taken over by a very radical faction of their party. That whole convention seemed to be that, and I guess that's one of the issues too, right? People see that, and if you don't follow their line, then you're dog meat, right? You have no chance. I mean, I think I've never seen that before in a convention, to be that one-sided. On both sides, you could say that, but I think more so in the Democratic convention. I don't know what you thought, but
well, yeah, but I think what happens in conventions, in all elections. I mean, and it's not just, I've been talking mostly about Congress, but it's state legislatures, it's city governments that are partisan governments. All the decisions are made not in terms of what is best for my state or my city or nationally for the country, but they're made about what's going to help what message, what line that I take is going to help my party win in the next election. Well, there ought to be a time, and I thought this when I was elected, where you step across the line and you're no longer thinking as a partisan candidate, but you have taken an oath of office to do your duty, to, in this case, the country. And people don't cross that line anymore. They stay in a partisan election mode all the time. And there are important things that have to be done where we have to come together and say, what do we do about our infrastructure? What do we do about, the problems that we have with education or with anything else? And we can't do that because we can't talk to each other. It's all about, Doug, if you're a member of the other party, all I care about is how I'm going to defeat you. And you can't run a country that way.
I think you may have even brought it up in the book, and I just remember back when Ronald Reagan was president. Now he and Tip O'Neill were probably pretty as opposite as you can get politically, but they would fight it out during the day, and then at night they'd get together and have a beer and joke around. I don't think that happens as much today with the leaders. I may be wrong, but I don't think that's the case.
It doesn't happen. We created a system also where members of Congress are actually in Washington basically 3 days a week, so they don't really get to know each other in any case. And, it's real easy to demonize somebody you don't know, and all you know about them is they belong to the other political party. So, we have to change things in the election system. We have to get rid of closed party primaries so that all of the electorate can choose who goes to Washington. We have to change the redistricting to independent commissions so that you can't draw party lines that disadvantage voters because it's for the party's interest. And then we have to change things in Washington, too, so that party leaders can't retain control over you by deciding what committees you're on and all that stuff. So we really need to make a lot of very fundamental reforms. The book talks about how to do it, but it's really important that the American people understand that they have the power to change this system, and I think people are ready to do that.
Yeah, you give great detail, like you mentioned just a couple there. Others establish nonpartisan congressional leadership, eliminate some of the architecture. I guess you talk about separate lecterns, separate cloakrooms in Congress, which really kind of makes it hard for opposite parties just to get together and just talk, right, informally.
That's right. It's everything in the way the Congress operates is to divide you into different teams. You even have, as you mentioned, there's separate cloakrooms that you go into. If you want to read a newspaper, make a phone call, have an informal conversation. Republicans do it in one place, Democrats in another. If you want to give a speech on the House floor, if you're a Democrat, you have to stand in front of one lectern in front of the Democrats. If you're a Republican, at a different lectern in front of the Republicans. It's absurd. It's just really absurd. We're supposed to be one nation. We're supposed to be all Americans, and we operate our government as though, it's the NFL.
It doesn't seem to be the art of compromise. Doesn't seem to be as practiced as it used to be.
No, and the thing is, Doug, if there's, like today, there's 310 million of us, all kinds of different backgrounds, experiences. So you stand on principle. You fight for the principles you believe in, but then at some point, you after you have gotten as much as you can get, you say, now let's find the common ground. We have to act together. That just doesn't happen anymore. And to some extent, a lot of Americans will only talk to people who share their views and aren't willing to talk to people that have different ideas. So we've got a lot of repair work to do.
I don't know if you go on Facebook much, Congressman, but you should read some of the stuff on both sides people put up and the comments people put there. There's not a lot of dialogue going on or debate. It's just more like insults, really. But I don't think that's the direction you want to go politically. I think you have to talk face to face, don't you?
Yeah, you need to talk face to face. But not only that, you have to learn two things. One is that you have to learn about a real dialogue so that when you talk, I'm listening to you. I'm not busy forming my rebuttal. And the other thing is that you have to learn critical thinking so that whatever you hear or read, you don't just take at face value. You try to think, well, is there another side to this that I ought to consider? And we've lost that skill, and that's part of the problem. But I'd say that's only part of the problem. The other part is the architecture. You know, the fact that we have closed party primaries, so that in a state like Delaware, I've used this example before, where you had 1 million people in the state, and a woman named Christine O'Donnell only got 30,000 votes in a primary. 30,000 votes in a state of 1 million people.
Right.
But because most states have sore loser laws, then other candidates could not even be on the ballot. And you know, why do we allow our system to be run that way?
Yeah, some would say the best candidate for the party that year never got a chance to run, and where's Christine O'Donnell today? We don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, Congressman, I mean, obviously people listening to us today, and you know, they may agree or disagree what has to be changed, but they want to change something. What can we tell them, or what can you tell them? What's the best way to do it? I guess on the local level, obviously, right? You got to get involved, right?
Well, you know, I hate to say it to the people listening, but to some extent, it's up to them. 24 states have initiative petitions in their constitution, and this happened in Washington State and California recently, where they just changed the rules and said we're not going to have closed party primaries, and we're not going to let the parties redistrict. So you can do that through initiative petitions or referenda, but in other states, what you have to do. You know, I'm sorry, you can't stay home and just get mad. You show up when your congressman, your senators show up at a town meeting or give a speech, and you're there and you confront them and you tell them this system has to change, and if you're not going to support the changes, then we're going to change who represents us, because we can't continue to be a dysfunctional society.
Great advice in the book. It really gives the layman really a chance to understand it. Obviously, there's a lot of complicated rules in Congress, you know, and bills are put forward and passed, but it really comes down to just people talking to each other, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's called The Parties versus the People, How to Turn Republicans and Democrats into Americans. We've been talking with Congressman Mickey Edwards today. And Congressman, I know the book's doing really well. Congratulations on that. It just came out, but where can people get it if they like? Website? You have
well, you know, it's out there everywhere. It's in the bookstores. It's Barnes & Noble, Amazon. A lot of people get it on Amazon. The sales are going very well. And so you can get it anywhere. And if you happen to be going to one of the stores that hasn't stocked it, just tell them you want them to get it for you.
They'll order. Do you have a website people get a hold of you, Congressman?
I don't have my own website up yet because the book just came out, but right. It's published by Yale University Press, and so you know you can get it on go to Yale University Press too and get it. But we're putting up our website, but the book just came out and it took off much faster than we expected, and so we're a little behind on doing that.
There's a glut of political books out, but I think this one is going to make its way, already has, to the top, and it gives good common sense. I mean, it doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with or interested in. I think it gives good common sense. I think that's why it's doing so well.
Yeah, I think that Dallas Morning News yesterday ran an editorial, said this is the one political book people need to read. So hopefully they will. And
you're doing some column writing and some radio as well. So you're keeping the voice out there. That's good.
I'm doing my best.
Congressman, good to talk to you. Hopefully we can do it again before the election. If not, we'll do it after. But thanks for being with us today.
Okay, thanks very much.
Great.